Welcome to Sports Beat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports podcast. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. On today's show, we are talking soccer, Sporting Kansas City, and the changes that need to be made to the team that won last weekend to end a 7-game losing streak. That victory over Seattle got Sporting out of the conference basement, but the threat of missing the playoffs is looming. On this episode, columnist Sam McDowell breaks down the situation. He spent some time recently with co-principal owner Mike Illig and came away with some interesting ideas about how the club can improve and the status of manager Peter Vermes. Okay, let's get started talking Sporting Kansas City with Sam McDowell. I'll start you with this one, Sam. Have you noticed how many MLS coaches have been fired this year?
I don't know the exact number.
Been a few.
Yeah, there's definitely been a few, even though we're, less than halfway through the season
Right.
now. Yeah.
I've got FC Dallas, Nashville SC, Atlanta United. Those are the ones I know about. There might have been one or two more.
There's been, several over the past, year and a half.
Yes,
Since the start of the 23 season. And look, that's an issue that is at the top of what we're talking about with Sporting Kansas City, but the commissioner of MLS thinks there should be fewer fired head coaches, thinks that these teams are cycling through these coaches too quickly. It's becoming you and I both follow the NHL. It's reminiscent of the way that league goes through its coaches.
It's a good point. It's like and some of these coaches, MLS coaches that were fired, weren't under 500. For the year. And we talk about it in this reference because of Sporting Kansas City and Peter Vermes, who, as you discovered this past weekend, will not join the list of MLS coaches who will be fired. And given the record of Sporting Kansas City, I don't think they're in last place now. I think their win on Saturday got them out of 11. Yeah. I think maybe tied for 12th or 13th in the
second to last
conference, right? But they had lost 7 in a row before that, and some of the same feelings that we got a year ago when they went through this, and the same April, May, early June returned to this year. And ironically enough, they beat the same team that at Seattle that they made the pivot last year with. So, just what are your feelings about this, and why did Mike Illig tell you that Peter Vermes wasn't going to be fired?
Yeah, it does feel the same as last year, except last year when the excuse was that there's that Peter Vermes at that time didn't have his full toolbox was the phrase that Mike Illig used frequently, and he was right. Gadi Kinda was out, Alan Pulido was out. Those guys were just getting back in the lineup. It's not when they came back in the lineup everything was going to click immediately. So there was at least a reason for hope that this was going to turn the way that it did a year ago. And I just don't have that same feeling when I walk in to the complex. I've been to their last 2 home matches, and there's a certain staleness to it that I don't think is solvable with what they currently have on the roster. In fact, I think the current roster is what prompts the staleness as much as the head coach does. And look, my conversation with Mike was pretty wide-ranging. I don't know if we settled on just an exact one reason that Peter Vermes would be back, other than he said he does view it as a time to put an injection into the roster. And if there is going to be, at one point he used the word rebuild, he more frequently used the term reset. And he just wants Peter Vermes leading that, if that's going to be the case. And I understand why that prompts a lot of questions from people that follow this team. I had a lot of follow-up questions whenever I was told that, and illustrated a lot of that through the article.
So whose responsibility is it to inject newness into this? Is it Peter? Is it ownership? Whose job is it?
It's a great question. When you're in last place, I really think everybody's to blame. I think I'll start with the least to blame, but somewhat to blame, are the players themselves. The guys that they pay the most money to, 3 of their 4 highest paid players are Daniel Shalhoub, Johnny Russell, and Alan Pulido. And there's just not a lot of urgency from that group. I think Saturday's match felt different to me in that aspect. I thought Johnny Russell just like played his butt off in that game in a way that I haven't seen that full 90-minute effort from him a lot. Alan Polito, I think, is caught napping a little bit sometimes on the field. That's probably too strong of a word, but I don't know that we see just all sorts of attacking from him. And I think Daniel Shallow is a guy that's playing without his full confidence right now. So that's again the least facet. But the other thing falls, at the manager / sporting director / guy that's in charge of the academy and the homegrown. I mean, he's in charge of too much. And then the ownership. And I think it's just really easy this day and age when things aren't going well for everybody on the outside to say, well, you got to get rid of the guy who's in charge, the manager. And he certainly deserves to be scrutinized for these past 2.5 years. But I just am surprised that what's been absent from the conversations that they haven't spent money the last 3 transfer windows. And it's just like it's pretty easy to connect dots when you're stagnant in 3 straight transfer windows. It shouldn't be surprising that it feels so stagnant on the field. I mean, yes, there's a trickle-down effect when you don't. I thought, if they had won MLS Cup, I still think they should have added guys. Because they made that mistake after they won MLS Cup in 2013 when they brought the same group back. I just think that, we're sitting here in the Chiefs facility and we talked to guys today about, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, the way they're just constantly injecting life into the group, even though they've won before. I don't know that Sporting has that. And if you don't, you need to get that with just new guys, with new blood, even if they aren't that leadership quality. They bring a different sort of hunger that I just think the roster's been stale for too long.
So maybe the approach after last year's fantastic regular season finish and then great run into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Did they get a little seduced by that?
That was the exact question. I don't think I put that in the article, but I asked Mike Illig, I said, do you think it hurts you for this year that you were so good at the back end of last year? Because I do think they were complacent and they just looked at, why it went well, because the guys came back. And it's like, but you lost one of those guys in Gotti Kinda this offseason. You didn't replace him. MLS is a league that structures, it's a salary cap, yes, but to me it's more similar to an uncapped league because you can pay 3 players and absorb an amount of money. If you're Miami, you can figure out how to pay more than 3 guys and absorb an amount of money. Sporting Orlando does that with 1 guy. I mean, technically Daniel Shallow and Eric Tommy are designated players, but only because it saves them money against the cap. Like, they have enough TAM to buy those guys down to make them non-DPs and get 2 more DPs in there, but they've only got Alan Polito, who's underperformed this year. And look, I think Alan Polito's a good example of the cost of not spending, because when you don't want to pay big money for transfer fees, which I get, it's a risk, but I think it prompts you to overspend for the guys that don't require transfer fees. Alan Polito's already on the roster. He's not going to cost you a transfer fee to acquire, so maybe you spend a little bit too much, more than he's probably worth, because he doesn't have that extra financial attachment to him. But MLS has just blown by that day and age where you can get by building a roster with just your internal assets. I mean, I really think there was nobody better at it. And let's backtrack to right after they won MLS Cup. I mean, they're trading Dom Dwyer 2 years later. They're trading Ike Opara. Those guys were at the peak of their career because that's how they collected their finances to go out and compete with the big spending teams. But this league's just outgrown that, and Sporting hasn't caught up to it yet.
Well, those teams that you talked about, although they didn't have postseason success, had great regular season success.
Yes.
I mean, those teams are always in the playoffs.
Yes, and that consistency is underrated. It may be more appreciated now.
Yes.
The difficulty of just how, and that's like another thing that I think is just lost in the Peter Vermes conversation. Like, I don't think he's doing his best work now, obviously. But, Peter Vermes would work for the other 28 clubs if he was on the market. This is not a question of whether or not Peter Vermes can still work in the new iteration of Major League. He can. It's just they've determined that he's the best guy to guide them forward. And when I mentioned, it being stale or stagnant, I think it's legitimate to wonder if his message also has been stale or stagnant among guys that have been with him for a long time. Another reason, by the way, just to add new players to your roster.
I think he's only missed the playoffs twice in his, what is it, his 13, 14 years, whatever
this is
it
his
is.
15th full season. He
Right.
was the interim coach in 2009, so
Right.
it's his 15th full season.
And I think they've missed the playoffs twice. That's remarkable.
Yeah.
Remarkable. Consistency for him. And I don't know what the records of MLS teams are since he came into the league, but I imagine they're no worse than third.
Yeah, they were. I can't remember what it was. I think it was third or fourth in points per match. Since your point, they brought in so many new teams since
Right.
he took over. You had to do it on a points per match basis, and I think they were like third or fourth in that category since he came in.
You mentioned Alan Pulido, and what I've noticed about him is how unnoticeable he is in
Yes.
games.
Yes.
And when he arrived, he played at a different level. And I thought, this is an infusion of talent that this club needs. And we saw it for a while. I'm not seeing it anymore.
Yeah.
Just in flashes and spots, but not like
I
it was.
totally agree with you. I remember his first year in Sporting Kansas City, and I went out to their media day, and I hadn't been to any of their practices in the preseason the way I used to, obviously, when I was on the beat. And I was talking to Graham Zusi, just having a conversation with him about, I was just like, what do you think of the team this year? And Polito was still practicing as I was talking to Graham. And he pointed at him and said, if that guy stays healthy this year, we're going to be really good. Like, he was the most veteran player on the team, had thought the whole thing centered around Alan Polito. I don't think any of us would think that the whole thing centers around Polito now.
Right.
And look, I mean, a lot of like what he went through, his career-ending injury, he's been able to rebound through that to return, which is like a hell of an accomplishment in and of itself. He hasn't been the same player since. And I think a lot of it is like he plays a little bit out of position in my mind. I mean, he wants to be involved in the attack before it gets to the attack. So he's dropping back a lot to play hold-up play, but to me, and this is where I think Peter Vermes does need to take responsibility, he doesn't have the wings to fly by on the channels for a striker to drop back and lob a ball over, because his wings don't make a lot of runs deep into the defense. So we did see, Vargas scores and the game-winning goal against Seattle on Saturday, and I thought he brought a speed that we haven't seen from Sporting in a long time. And look, Shallowy got hurt in that game. I think it'd be time to give Vargas some run and see if maybe he can bring you a little bit of a different element. And then maybe Polito becomes more effective, because I do think he's best playing with guys that bring a lot of speed on the wings. That's just not what they have. You
mentioned that we're recording this in the Chiefs practice facility. We are. I remember was it Tyreek Hill's last season, or maybe his second to last season, when the Chiefs got off to a rough start. They were dropping a lot of passes, had a lot of turnovers, and losing to teams they shouldn't have lost to.
3-4, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I thought about that while I watched Sporting during this losing streak get leads on teams and then give up a goal in the final 15, 20 minutes at home.
Yeah. And
I don't know how to explain that except for a lack of concentration, or just, I'll go, to me it started with the second game of the season against Philadelphia at home, where Philadelphia scored the tying goal in extra time, when I thought Sporting kind of went to sleep at the wheel on a throw-in. Philadelphia ended up getting it was a ball out of bounds. Sporting thought it was their ball. Philadelphia got it, threw it in, led to the game-tying goal. And then again, they lose leads and late. What is it about this team that just has had so much bad luck late in games?
Well, I do think it's a team that's waiting for something to go wrong, and the teams that play that way, typically it does go wrong. Typically they are proven right, and I think the inverse is true too. I think when a team gets confidence and thinks everything's going to work out in the end, it's more likely to. We saw in 2021. And because I know this is a little bit different of a point, but I remember Gianluca Buzzio's last year, and the reason I bring him up is he was at the game on Saturday, and the U.S. is playing tonight, and he's not going to be able to play because he's on the injury list. But his last year, when they trailed in a game, they were the opposite team. They trailed in a lot early, and they came back. And 10 minutes after they were trailing, you said, they're going to win this match. I don't feel that from when they get down, but the inverse is true. What you just said, when they get a lead in a match, they're playing with a certain form of nerves that I think that just kills them late because it's happened before. And look, I mean, this is the part that I also think falls at Peter Vermes' feet, which is like they're a possession team still. A lot of MLS teams have phased out of that in recent years. He hasn't. But if you're going to be that team, there should be nobody better than protecting leads than you. You should be possessing the ball and, killing the clock that way, and they're not good at that.
Well, I wonder, too, if substitutions play a role in this as well, second half substitutions.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just not, I mean, substitutions is another thing, because I know he gets criticized a lot because he does not use subs. Like, when you go through the stats, he's one of the 3 or 4 lowest in the league at subbing. I think where it hurts him even more is like a guy like Vargas that scored on Saturday. That should not be our 3rd or 4th time being introduced to him this year. If you had built him up throughout the year, I think he'd be in a better position to contribute when you have guys who are struggling. We've seen Peter Vermes before this last match, the previous 2, he benched a lot of his starters, the Shallowy, Russell, Polito front line. And I just thought if he had done that earlier at a more phasing it in situation, that those guys would have been ready for a bigger moment when your first team is really struggling.
I don't know if this is important in the grand scheme of things, but I wanted for Kansas City, as it prepares to host the World Cup, I wanted Sporting to be on an upswing. They're going to have to give up their practice facility, and of course soccer will be taking a big break then. But I wanted international folks to come to Kansas City and be and be kind of excited about Sporting and check out the Sporting's team and everything. And I'm not sure they can get there in a year and a half.
Yeah, it's really interesting you mentioned that, Blair, because I know you probably experienced this too. But a lot of times when you write something that's like so long, like it was over 2,000 words, you read it the next day and think that you left something out, and that was it. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that Mike Illig said the next 3 transfer windows are when they're targeting to bring in more players, because those are the 3 transfer windows that are leading up to that 2026 World Cup. I mean, there's only going to be one chance to capitalize on this. I don't know. This could probably, at least in our lifetimes, I can't imagine Kansas City is ever going to host a World Cup match again after
Not a men's.
2026.
The women are going to come here.
Great point.
Yeah.
But it's for this team specifically to capitalize on it. I don't know when they're going to have this chance again. Like, they have to take advantage. And to your point, I think a lot of it needs to be the work beforehand, not just capitalizing it after the World Cup is gone. I think you want that momentum. Because, I mean, look, we're going to be talking a ton about the World Cup before it's here. And, like, what better time to try and get people interested in the World Cup than going to see the product you have already in town?
And even being able to show it off to international players coming into town.
Great point.
Look, it's the MLS isn't certainly not the world's top 4 or 5 leagues, but it's a destination for sometimes older international players, and we saw one of those older international players help put 72,000 people at Arrowhead Stadium. A couple of months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. I mean, I wonder. That obviously has to be a goal of U.S. soccer during this World Cup, and that has to have been impressed upon the cities that are hosting this. This is a recruitment tool to get some of these players, the best players in the world, to get some of these players to play here and like it here and want to stay here. I wonder what they're going to think of the travel once they're here, because that's going to be unlike anything they've experienced, especially in the European leagues. But yeah, that has to be a very real thing to be leading up to the World Cup, not just taking advantage of the momentum that's in its wake.
Okay, so I don't know how you felt a year ago about. I was, we were all down on Sporting, and then they just, as you wrote, they had basically a come to Jesus meeting with the team, and it worked. They went on a tear, and I'm not sure anything like that happened this time.
They've already had that meeting. Yeah, they did not play well coming off of it. Yeah, so yeah,
that's bad to hear.
It was probably what was so incredible about that meeting is it was it kind of happened naturally. I mean, the meeting itself did not, but the way they let everything out kind of happened naturally among the players. And I could see why that sort of thing would be a one-time thing. As far as, I mean, when you know what's coming, you know why you're going down there, I think it's a little bit different.
So how do you feel about the second half of the season? They're right at the midway point. So there's plenty of time to get back into the playoff race, but they got a long way to go.
Yeah, they do. I mean, a year ago at this time, after they'd won a couple in a row, I still thought they'd end up making the playoffs because there's so many. I mean, 9 teams make the playoffs in MLS. It's a lot of teams that make it. I don't have that same feeling this year. I think there's too far to climb out. I do think they'll play better than what they had over the past couple of months. Like, I don't think they're going to be that bad. But to me, it's more about, I don't think this team's good enough with its talent to overcome the gap that they've had. I think they'll give it a run. But they were the best team in the West over the past, like last 4 months, over half of a season. Right. The best team in the West that only got them to number 8. I don't see them like best in the West good right now.
Yeah, they're buried pretty deep. So, listen, meanwhile, there's another pro soccer team in Kansas City doing pretty darn well. Kansas City Current, still undefeated, 8 wins, 4 draws, no losses. By the way, it's the same record as the Orlando Pride. So there's 2 teams with the same record in the Women's Professional League. It's been great to see. They had a dominating performance on Sunday.
Yeah, they've been exciting brand of soccer too, don't they?
God, they've got good players.
Yeah, I mean, and they're setting. I can't remember whether it was just to open a season or open a stadium or obviously they have the only women's specific stadium in the league, but I think they had set a record for the amount of goals scored to open a season at home or something. Like, if you were one of the thousands of people that bought current season tickets, like, you have to feel like you've gotten your money's worth. I mean, it's multiple times this season they've scored 5 goals,
including this past Sunday.
Yeah. So,
no, they're great, and now the expectations on them will be, got to win it, got to win it, and we'll talk to one of the co-owners here in a couple of days here at the Chiefs facility.
Yeah. It's also just, it really is a great story for Vlatko too, right? I mean, that's what happens with a lot of the coaches at the men's and women's level when they get national team jobs that suddenly become under a microscope you never were before in whatever city you had your specific success. And I can't think of the last person that's really survived that microscope on either side. And the thought when all these coaches leave that job is they're just not very good. And so what a great individual story for a coach specifically to lead the kind of turnaround that the Current have.
How about, did you see who all was out there on Sunday?
Yeah.
Andy Reid in his KC Baby shirt, Salvi, Bobby Witt, Vinny Pasquantino, the rookies, Chiefs rookie class.
The Mahomeses were there too. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Quite a happening.
Yeah, it almost looked like when Andy Reid walked in, there was so many Chiefs rookies. It was like a high school coach bringing his team to the game because they were the youngest looking guys on the team too. But yeah, that's a cool thing. It's really cool the way the city has embraced a women's sports team for sure.
Yeah. All right, Sam. Thanks a lot. We'll talk again soon.
Sounds good.
That'll do it for today's episode. Thanks to producer Randy Mason for putting together the show, and to our SportsBeat KC staff of Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, and Scott Chasen. Tip of the cap to star columnist Sam McDowell for sharing his insights. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in and around Kansas City.